So a bit of a side note, I was watching the other day. It was a video of some people gaming, um, and they were we're introducing our characters, and the one guy got into a long thing about his backstory, and he was talking about how he grew up in a warrior culture, but was a pacifist and was sort of shunned, and then wandered the land, and then met this great smith and master smith, and the smith taught him some skills, and so he felt that that was a way that he could go back and with his smithing skills go back and redeem himself with his warrior culture but not fight, and so on and so forth. And everybody the whole time around the table was like, oh, yes, and nodding and being very right, narrowing their eyes and tilting their heads all in the right ways. um but I recognize that look. That's the look that people have when they're at a business meeting and they're thinking about what they're going to do for lunch. I was like, come on, man. No one cares that much about your backstory but you. And this is a companion sort of rant to my video that I made a little while ago with my revelation as a GM that no one cared as much about my world building as me. My players just didn't care as much. And and though I still loved it, and it's a thing I did, I realized at that time as a GM I should focus on stuff that the players were going to care about as opposed to things they weren't going to care about, and use the stuff that they weren't going to care about only in service of the things they were going to care about. So as players, I would admonish you to do the same thing. I get it. You got a 10-page backstory. You want to be tortured and right. Oh, I grew up and my mother didn't understand. Whatever it is, whatever the thing is, or oh, we right any you. I was young on a desert planet and I was a farm boy and I wanted to be a pilot for the Empire, and then my uncle and aunt were killed by the stormtroopers. And okay, fine, perfectly fine. You can have that backstory. It's perfectly fine backstory. But what you should focus on, what's going to get you the most value at the table, is going to be focusing on things that the other characters and the GM are going to be able to interact with. Think about it. Of all the characters that you have played, who remembers your backstory for any specific one of them, aside from you? And I'd even ask the question, how many of your characters' backstories, detailed backstories, do you actually remember now that those campaigns are over? And it's really the same sort of concept that I had thought about when I was talking about world building, which is we need to focus on the stuff that we're going to interact with, because what you remember in a role-playing game is the things that you do, or the things that you did, or the things that your friends did. Those are the things that you remember. And we're all here as we play. Keep in mind, we're all here to entertain each other. That's the joy of that. Is literally is the joy of role playing, is that you can have 5 people at the table. Every one of them is there to entertain the other 4 and themselves. And I'm sorry, your 10 pages of backstory is not really that entertaining. I would bet money on it. I'm not going to say everyone's backstory is not entertaining. Some of you might be great writers. Having said that, I'm going to say that if you ask me to bet money, I would bet that it's not that entertaining. What is going to be entertaining is when you boil that down into the 2 or 3 or 4 things that you're going to then hand out to those other characters and the GM as points that they can use to interact with you, or things that you're going to do in the game. Things that you're going to do in the game. So, you have master smith skills, but when the goblins attack the smithy, you just stand there stoically and don't draw steel. That's going to cause someone to ask you then about what's up, right? That's a behavior. That's something you can do that people will remember. Oh, remember the time that you stood there while the goblins were trashing your smithy, and Aldrich and I had to bail you out. What's with that? Or you know, make that the key, right? Um, the things that you're going to do. Give me those points. Oh, I'm afraid of spiders and I don't like nobility, and put that's bam, put that in there. Um, if you want certain story beats to hit, don't write the 10-page backstory and hand it to your GM and hope that the GM picks up on all that stuff. Go to the GM and say, you know what, I would like, if you don't mind, to have a powerful hunted that I'm going to be fleeing from. And then the GM can start thinking about that and he can work that in. Or not, or tell you, no, that doesn't really fit, or whatever. I don't want you hunted by Dr. Destroyer. I can give you, you can be hunted by Foxbat, right? Or whatever, right? Work that in with specific points that you can hand somebody that they're going to be able to touch and interact with at the table. I used to tell players, said, don't obsess over your inner monologue, because no one at the table can interact with your inner monologue. You should always be looking to things that if you have an issue, or if you're like, if your character is concerned about going into the tomb, then you should specifically bring that up and go into the tomb. And if you're worried about going into the tomb because you're afraid that you're going to confront the zombified corpse of your long lost brother, then that should be something that you bring up. Now, hopefully you're not stepping on the GM when you do that kind of stuff. So you need to work out those salient points with them first. But just saying, oh, I don't want to go in the tomb because I have a backstory doesn't help, unless, maybe you're fishing for them to ask you, and that's fine. And maybe they will, and maybe they won't. But make it visible, make it tangible, make it playable, and we will, and everybody will appreciate it. So again, that guy's example would be great. I'm a pacifist. I have a lot of skills and I will be helpful to the party, but I will not draw steel. Even if someone attacks me, I will retreat before I will draw blood of another creature. There you go, done. That's all you needed to really go. And then maybe during the game, then it starts to maybe it starts to come out then why this has happened. And what I don't want, and I'm just checking the time because I don't want this to go too long, because it's mostly a rant, so I apologize. What I don't want to say, though, I don't want to tell people don't do backstories. Just like I don't want to tell GMs don't do lore, don't do world building. I think you should. You should do whatever it is that makes you happy. That's the point of this hobby, is to please you and make you happy. What I'm trying to say is that you can do all of that stuff, but when you do it, you should at least remember and realize that the stuff that's going to be important to everyone else and the stuff that's important to you isn't necessarily the same stuff. And what I would ask you to do as a GM at my table would be to take all that stuff that's important to you and distill it down and give us something that's going to be important to us. It's going to be tangible to the rest of the table. So you write your 10-page backstory if you want, but then pick out 3 or 4 really key things that you're going to absolutely do or absolutely not do, or behaviors you're going to exhibit, or plot points that you are really, really invested in coming up. And work, and let's talk about those, and let's get those on the table. And that's it. That's what I think I would like to tell folks is that. So that's it. Rand over. Thank you very much, and I will talk to you later. Bye bye.